Hey friends, welcome back to the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. I'm Erika, your host, and today's episode is deeply personal one to me and so many other people. Before we start, I want to bring a gentle trigger warning and a reminder. We'll be discussing infertility, alternative paths of parenthood, and the emotional things that come with these experiences. So if you need to take a pause during this time at any point, please do so. Your own priority. I am so honored for today's guest to welcome. Her name is Joy. She's the founder of Joyous Origins, a coach and advocate supporting women through infertility, alternative family holding journey, and Joy is here to share her story, offer hope, and show us the family and motherhood can be done in many different ways. So without further ado, I want to welcome Joy.
Hello, everyone. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Erika.
Oh, you're welcome. I know we have been having some each other back and forth, but I am so happy that you're here. So I want to thank you for taking the time to joining us. Let's get started with sharing your story. So what inspired the name Joyous Origins, correct?
Yes. So my name is Joy, obviously, and I really want to support other women who have had similar stories to mine. I got married a little bit later in life in my mid to late 30s and was so excited to be a mom. Started trying before even our wedding day. And unfortunately, we didn't get pregnant. I had been on a birth control that kind of suppressed my cycle. And so my cycle just didn't come back. And we tried to get pregnant for 6 months as recommended for that age group, and then sought assistance from an OBGYN and ultimately a fertility doctor. And I'm someone who likes to prepare for the worst case scenario. So I was like, all right, worst case scenario is we have infertility and we have to do IVF, and then we get pregnant and we get our baby and we have our family. Mm-hmm. And thought I just needed to go to the infertility doctor to get like a hormone shot, adjust my hormones, and I'd be good to go. Unfortunately, upon meeting and consulting with 2 fertility specialists, we learned pretty quickly that I basically was in early menopause and didn't have any eggs left, which happened a lot quicker for me than, is expected for someone of my age and background. So when my fertility doctor first said third-party reproduction, mm-hmm. I was so angry. I was like, what do you mean? Like what are you talking about? Like, give me that shot. Like, let's try IVF. And mm-hmm. It was a very emotional time. I was newly married and really wanted to start our family. And it became more important to build our family than mm-hmm. how it actually happened. So we, with time and education and meeting with therapists who specialize in third-party reproduction, we were able to grieve the loss of my genetics, which was extremely hard for me because I myself am adopted. And so having my own children was going to be the only way I was going to ever meet someone genetically related to me. And I wanted to know what that felt like, to have somebody with the same genes as you and carrying down traits. Of course, me and my husband, like many couples, had thought about what our future children would look like and what traits they would get from each of us. And we had to really rethink the whole vision of our family and what that was going to look like for us. We took time to grieve the loss of my genetics, mm-hmm. And welcome this new path. It wasn't easy. I went to bed crying alone many nights, somehow, waking up and going to work and putting on a brave face. Even though inside I was completely devastated, it was a very hard time and very difficult. I found support and met other people who'd been on the same path, which really, really helped bring me hope and understanding of what the process was going to look like and that mm-hmm. this could work out for us. So we searched for an egg donor who was a similar background to me. I'm half Black and half Asian. Okay. And the vast majority of donors, especially egg donors, are white. I would say like over 90%. So I spent 3 weeks, like it was my job, searching databases, creating profiles as an intended parent on all these databases, trying to find someone with a similar background to me. Mm-hmm. And we finally found an egg donor agency that was located in California who had not just one, but 3 or 4
Oh, good.
half Black, half Asian donors who were available. So we matched with someone. We met her via Zoom because we wanted to establish a relationship with our donor, and hopefully, continue that relationship as our kids get older so that they could know genetic their genetic family. That was something that was very important, especially me being adopted and not knowing any of my genetic family at the time. So that person that we matched with was really great. We really liked her. She passed all the medical clearance. We went through the legal process. And finally, we were at the step of where she was going to go in for her egg retrieval. And the day before the egg retrieval, my husband and I were so excited. Finally felt like we were, making real progress towards building our family. And our nurse coordinator called and said, "I'm so sorry, I have bad news. She tested positive for chlamydia. The cycle has to be canceled." And we were just beyond heartbroken.
No.
At that point, we were paying for her hotel to be close to our clinic. We'd gotten so close and spent so much time and money and energy and investment. And just according to FDA regulations, the cycle had to be canceled. And I said, come on, can we not just spray the eggs with some antibiotics? Come on, give me a break. We're so close here. And we had to wait another 3 months before we could try again with her. And during that time, we unfortunately got more bad news that she had tested positive for another STI that was not curable. So
oh no.
At that point, we decided we had to switch egg donors. And that was another really difficult moment for us as we'd grown attached to this woman and kind of already had foreseen her as part of our family in one way or another. And so we just went ahead and found another egg donor. We found someone who was really great, a really great fit for us. And it all went really quick and really smoothly. And before you know it, we were at the egg retrieval day again. And there were 36 eggs retrieved, which is a huge number.
That's a big number.
Yeah. My fertility doctor said if I myself had undergone IVF, he would have hoped to have gotten 0 or 1 egg. So to think of somebody getting 36 was just mind-blowing. We got 18 embryos. We tested 12 of them genetically to see if they are euploids. And of those 18, 12 were euploids. So we were very, very happy with those results. And 9.5 months later, we had our baby girl, Lola. The birth process, unfortunately, was not easy for us. We had severe complications. I had severe preeclampsia. My lungs filled with fluid, which is a life-threatening condition. And unfortunately, I did not receive good medical care in the hospital, which I think is something that a lot of us go through, especially people of color. And I repeatedly advocate for life-saving measures that should have been taken automatically and not required me constantly speaking up and reminding the providers to do their job. My daughter was in the NICU for 9 days.
Oh, no.
We just had a very, very rough time. And so I've learned to work through not only the trauma of infertility, but also birth trauma as well. So I know there's lots of us who have birth trauma in one way or another. And I just encourage everyone to get support and seek help. And things can get better.
Things can get better. And I'm glad that you shared this today because right before we were discussing, we got on here, we discussed a little bit about our paths crossing, and I'm glad that they have because birth trauma is so real, and a lot of people don't know about birth trauma. If you hear one of my episodes with Dr. E and of course Dr. Balance and Annie, I did talk about my birth trauma as I had a 4th-degree tear with my daughter.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was like a circus. And, dealing with providers, I feel like there needs to be more empathy when it comes to providers and with people of color, because again, we are the last ones on the tattle pole in reference to getting absolutely amazing health, and we have to advocate for ourselves. It's just like advocating at a regular job from 9 to 5. And right now in this economy that we're living in and in this society, it's tough to advocate for yourself when everything is being stripped from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so one of the questions I want to talk about is what led you to create a supportive space for people walking this path of infertility and supporting women? Because when I say through each episode, I have found so much support in you can do this. This is an amazing podcast that you've done because you're talking about things that nobody talks about. What led you to create that safe space for women?
Yeah. I felt extremely alone in going through infertility. And that's something I think a lot of us experience and don't have anyone to hold their hand as they walk through these really difficult times, to hold hope. Even if you're not ready to be hopeful in the moment, I'm going to hold it for you. And when you're ready, you can come and pick it up and I will share it back with you. So I really want to be available to others going through infertility, going through birth trauma, going through adoption, struggling to build their family so they feel less alone and supported, and have that hope holder for them as well. Those are all really important things for me. In addition, there's a good number of people out there providing infertility support, but not very many who are women of color. The vast majority of the infertility support space is dominated by white women. And I just didn't see myself in those, TikTok videos. So I want to be that face where women of color, diverse families, have someone who understands what it's like to be a person of color in America, who understands what it's like to have gone through medical trauma on the basis of their skin color, so that they really feel seen and supported and heard and validated and not dismissed like often happens in this society and in medicine.
I like that. I like that you created that safe space and that supportive space for women that are walking that path, because for listeners who might be new to this, they may not know the term of infertility or donor conception in a simple terms. Can you explain that in a little bit of what infertility and donor conception is?
Yeah. So infertility is just having difficulty getting pregnant, staying pregnant, having a baby, having a healthy baby. So it's struggling to build that family. And there's a multitude of different diagnoses, and it can look a lot different for a lot of people. But that's in general what I mean when I say infertility. Donor conception is when you need either an egg donor, a sperm donor, or donated embryos in order to build your family, and that could be through a number of paths, including surrogacy, as well. So that's kind of donor conception and third party reproduction.
Okay, that's interesting, because I know a few people that have dealt with infertility and the donor conceptions with like surrogacy and things like that, which is very intriguing about surrogacy because it's not often talked about either. What are some common misunderstandings you hear about infertility or donor conceptions, or even passing down a law of surrogacy?
Yeah, I think a lot of times things that I hear that I wish people had more knowledge and education on is that people say, oh, well, she's not your daughter then. She's not really yours. And I'm like, no, my daughter is 100% mine. We don't share genetics, but that's not what defines a family. And I know that personally, being adopted, that family does not equal DNA. There are so many ways to have and build families that are all beautiful and loving and accepting, and by no means less than having genetic relatives. So that's something that I think is really important in the donor conception world. I think another myth that I would like to bust is that you have to be positive in order to have a good fertility outcome. I hear a lot of women saying, "Oh my gosh, I was just so anxious," and that's why, I don't have a family yet. That's why I'm struggling to get pregnant. That's why I had a miscarriage. and we're allowed to have emotions. And going through infertility is deeply, deeply anxiety provoking. There are so many tests and so many steps, and so much noise out there about try this supplement, try this diet, and we put so much pressure on ourselves.
Right.
And for the vast majority of people suffering with infertility, these are medical issues. Sometimes we don't always know why, but it is not your fault. You're not the reason that you're having infertility. It wasn't because of what you did 5 years ago or because you didn't follow a strict diet. Really, really, really trying to help women so that they don't feel like it's their responsibility and they're to blame for being infertile. These are medical issues, and hopefully medical solutions can help get pregnant and stay pregnant and have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies as well. That's not always going to happen for everyone. IVF does not mean you get a baby. There are no guarantees in infertility treatments. IVF, donor conception. Unfortunately, a lot of people struggle for many years, even with the best technology and all these different methods to still get pregnant. Another thing is that it is a roller coaster. You just don't know what you're going to expect. I think many of our providers try to give us a plan. We're going to do 3 rounds of IVF and then hopefully you're pregnant, or we're going to do 2 back-to-back retrievals and we'll get this number of eggs. And a lot of times things just don't go to plan. And that can be really, really hard to process and challenge, process and accept as well. But it is a roller coaster, and just hopefully at the end of that roller coaster, you have the family that you've wanted.
I like that. I know there are some emotional considerations people face before exploring donor opinions or options. What are some of those emotional things that come attached to infertility? Like I said, it's not my first round in reference, so I'm learning this as I go. Because it is a sensitive topic that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah.
So for me, the education is to learn and to help other women out in the world when they do hear this about the emotional support, the self-compassion that comes with it. So what do donors typically face emotionally?
People who are donors or people who are intended parents using donor conception?
Using donor conception.
Yeah, so the hardest thing and one of the most challenging parts is really accepting this as their path to family building and grieving the loss that their genetics are not going to get passed on to their children. And the vision that they'd had of their family has to change. And how they're going to create that family is going to have to change. Another thing that I hear a lot from families is that they're so worried that their kids are going to be different and picked on or not feel good enough. And to that, what I try to tell my clients and people that I talk to is that let's be different. Let's celebrate that difference. Let's make that our, the great thing that we can share with our family and our friends. The diversity is beautiful. The difference is beautiful. That we don't all have to have families created the same way. We don't all have to look the same way, talk the same way. Let's celebrate that and lift that up. Let's not make that something to be worried or scared about.
I think that needs to be normalized. Know, that it's okay to be different. You can be a person that has a hearing disability and still become the world's greatest doctor. You can still have a person have dyslexia and they can be the best content creator. Being different is cool. And that's something that we're going through right now with my daughter, is trying to teach her that everybody's different. There's different walks of life, and that people sometimes may not accept you for who you are. She's a hugger, for example, and she loves to hug. I can't wait for you to meet her. But she's a hugger. She says hi and, just so bubbly. And some people are really mean. And I had to teach her that lesson of there's going to come times in your life where people are not going to like you for who you are. And I
Mm-hmm.
hate that you have to have this conversation now with the 7-year-old. And it's because the way our society is built that it's teaching now that you can be mean, or just like I saw a TikTok story about how a little girl was at school. She went to school. She didn't do nothing to nobody, got bullied, got in a fight
Mm.
for her first time, and they ripped her braids out of the front of
Oh,
her hair. And she
oh my
had a
gosh.
huge bald spot.
Oh
But
my
the school
gosh.
didn't even notify the mom until 24 hours later. And that's something that's one of my biggest fears. If something like that happens, and how am I going to react is the second
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know? But in this society, it's not talked about. And with the fertility journey can bring a lot of emotions like anxiety. It can bring sadness sometimes, or even, different emotions that it can bring. How do you help clients feel supported and navigate these feelings in a more healthier, compassionate way?
Yeah. So one thing that really helped me was having dedicated time in my week or in my month to sit with those emotions, to feel them, to talk about them. So providing that space, I think, is really, really important. And
Mhm.
also letting families feel that pain and talk
Mhm.
about it and be open about it and not try to bandage it or push it down. Really being able to sit with those emotions and feel them and communicate what they are and name them. um, if I'm working with clients who are with partners,
Mhm.
definitely bringing their partner in,
Mhm.
because what we've seen throughout data is that when one person in a couple is struggling, usually the other person is also. So
Mhm.
I think bringing the if partnered, bringing both people together, being able to talk about those emotions together. Because I know for myself, when we were going through infertility,
Mhm.
I was like in a different world from my husband emotionally. He's a very optimistic, happy-go-lucky kind of person,
Mhm.
and I was just surrounded by darkness and in a deep depression. And so being able to have space to come together and talk about what I was feeling, what he was feeling, and how we can support each other through this, is also a really important part of getting through infertility and getting through it together,
Yeah,
stronger.
that's important.
Not letting it be something that drives you apart from your partner, but brings you together. um, so that's something that I really tried to do in my practice as well, is involve partners and get everybody talking about their emotions and not feeling like they have to hide them from the person who should know them best.
I like that. And I talk about a lot of in recent episodes where we don't often hear about how the dads are feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and how dad's mental health is really, really, it's shoved down and suppressed for them. Um, and it needs to be also normalized that dads do have feelings too, and they can be um, empathetic to their situations too, you
Yep.
know, because although we have so many emotions as moms or just as women in general, men do have emotions as well. And they probably don't tell 90% of the time, don't say anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I like how you talked about how to do it more in a healthier approach instead of going a negative approach, because that negative can turn very dark, very, very,
Yeah.
you know? And people don't talk about depression enough, like postpartum depression either, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know families can be built in many different ways, as you stated, through IVF, through donor conception, through surrogacy, adoptions, and different birth experiences. So, how do these paths reshape what it means to be a parent? And if so, um, how have you personally redefined motherhood through donor conception?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for my own family, being adopted, what family means to me and what my mom means to me is that place where you feel safe, the people who support you and love you unconditionally. As a mother to my daughter, I'm not a mother because of a donor. I'm a mother because I'm up with her in the middle of the night, soothing her when she wakes up and
Mm-hmm.
needs to go back to sleep. When she falls down and gets hurt, I'm the one she wants to hold her and rock her until she feels safe again. That's what makes me a mother. So I think that language is really important. Yes, my daughter was conceived using a donor, but I'm a mother because of the relationship we have and because I love her more than anyone in the world. That's what makes me a mom. So that's how I try to reframe donor conception and what motherhood means to me.
I like that. And what encouragement do you offer to those who are currently going through an infertility or going through IVF or even using a surrogate? I really believe that surrogacy should be talked about more often too, because it's hidden. You know, you've seen the episode of Keep It Up with the Kardashians, and you see that Kim Kardashian used a surrogacy, or Chloe, she used surrogacy. And when people be like, you use a surrogacy to have a baby, you don't know what that person is going through behind doors. And it may be a difficult time for that person. They might have to reroute, and it could be a little bit of a rewired or an adjustment for somebody that's like saying, hey, I wanted to go through this, my own, my body to conceive, but at least to know that you're able to still be able to breathe a child through this is amazing. So what encouragement, back to the question, is that you can offer to those who worry about using a donor that may feel less of a parent?
Yes, I talk to a lot of women who have children that were donor conceived, and they say, I wish I wouldn't have waited so long. I spent so much time picking a donor or worrying about, is this the right path for me, when I could have been happy years ago. And instead I was, stuck, concerned, is this going to work? Is this going to be okay? Is my baby going to love me? Are people going to think I'm different? And had I just moved forward and gone through with it, I could have had this family and this love and this happiness much sooner. So for people who are on the fence and unsure, I say you don't have to be completely ready. You don't have to have all of your questions answered. It's okay to have some uncertainty. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be scared. If you can just, work through this a little bit of the way, you have happiness waiting for you. Assuming everything works out okay, which is not a guarantee, but assuming it does, you have a wonderful, happy life. You're going to be an amazing mom. Just because you've had struggles getting pregnant, staying pregnant, having a healthy pregnancy doesn't mean that you weren't meant to be a mother. You are 100% ready for this path. It was made for you, and you're going to have so much happiness.
Thank you for that encouragement. I like hearing that. And so, your background in public health is really important, especially people of color. We need more of that. Can we talk about how does the influence of your coaching approaches to the infertility? And then what tools and resources or affirmations do you share with your clients?
Definitely, yes. So I have a master's degree in public health, and that's really provided me an excellent background to understand infertility in the lens of public health, including data, which is my specialty. So I'm someone who's very much focused in science, but I also believe in things like spirit babies. So my spirit baby, the way I see them, are yellow butterflies that are in my background. So anytime I see yellow butterflies, I think about, those are my embryos coming to me saying hi, that they're ready to be earthside, or no, I need a little support or uplifting that day. So I'm a great mix of both science, epidemiology, data, but I also am very much in tune with my spiritual side as well.
I like that. And I know we talk about having someone be an advocate. So for the listeners who are partners, friends, or health providers, especially, what is the best way to support someone navigating fertility challenges?
I would say not to make assumptions. Ask how you can support the person going through infertility. Don't assume, they don't want to hear about my birth announcement, so I'm not going to tell them. Talk to them individually. Ask how they can support. Say, I know this must be hard. Be empathetic. And everyone's unique. Everybody needs something different. So not making any assumption about what someone might need or might not need. And instead, being, kind and empathetic and asking how you can help. I think for our providers and people in the medical fields, reading up on being trauma informed and understanding what that means, is also super, super important.
I think that's very important to highlight that. And your story has really touched me. Not going to cry because I've cried on past episodes, but you sharing your story publicly takes a lot of courage because a lot of people right now are probably still hiding about the infertility issues that they face. And so, what surprises or joys have come from the community you've built? And can you share a message from someone that might need to be touched today in reference to this infertility or related to donor conception?
Absolutely. So, what I would say for people out there going through infertility or considering donor conception is that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be sad and worried and unsure. All of those are completely normal feelings. To find someone to talk to who gets it, who isn't going to judge you, who's going to hold space and hope for you. And there's so many resources out there. There's donor conception coaches like myself at Joyous Origins. There are infertility support groups. I love Infertility Unfiltered to meet other people walking the same path as you. That can also be a super empowering and uplifting experience. They also have educational information out there as well to understand exactly what your options are. I encourage everyone to find medical providers who listen to them, who hear them, who don't judge them, who you feel safe with. That's going to make the process so much better for you.
Very true.
And I also really encourage people to find mental health providers as well.
Yes, mental health is very important. Now, before we wrap up, let's share some affirmations for anyone's navigating or exploring alternative paths of parenthood. So I'll read a statement, and Joy, you can expand on it, share a few words of encouragement. So the very first one I have is, my journey to parenthood is unique, and that is okay.
Love that affirmation because everyone's journey is going to be different. And like we were talking about earlier, let's celebrate those differences and praise them and raise them up instead of being scared or worried about being different.
I like that. And another one I have is, I am enough no matter how my family is built.
One of my favorite affirmations is that I am enough because you are exactly how you are, and exactly what you're doing is enough, and you deserve to be loved and have this great path of building your family.
Another one I have is, hope and healing are possible even on the hardest days.
Yes, we all have those really, really dark days. And even on those dark days, even if all you're doing is surviving on that day, that is enough. That can be hopeful. That can be healing. You're getting through even on those dark days, and that hope is going to come.
And then another one would be, love is what makes a family, not the path we take to get there.
Absolutely. I think especially these days, their families look so different. They're built in so many ways, but what brings them all together is that unconditional love.
Yes. And I think unconditional love is a huge factor to have when it comes to building a family. Because like we talked about earlier, being different is not bad. It's actually pretty cool. I like seeing different people and seeing different backgrounds. Before we wrap up on our conversation, can you share some tips for using these affirmations daily for me today?
Yeah, so I like to keep affirmations on my phone, like in the note section, and when I need them, reflect upon them. You can do a brief meditation focusing on them, or just when you're having a difficult moment, kind of repeating them like a mantra can be really helpful.
Yes, I like note taking because I take notes all the time. So, Joy, thank you for such an amazing and thoughtful and compassionate conversation today. Where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your offerings?
To find me, I'm on Instagram at Joyous Origins, or you can check out my website and book a free 15-minute consultation at joyousorigins.com.
Perfect. Well, to every listener, your journey, your family, and your motherhood is very valid. You are enough. Share this episode with someone who might need a little hope today, a little love. We can all use love in the world. Until next time, I'm your host, Erika, with the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. And Joy, thank you again for coming on to this podcast today. I really appreciate you sharing your story. Until next time, bye guys.
Thanks so much.